Yes, greetings to all viewers from Walking the Narrow Road with Brother James. This is my sixth video. I'll be going more into detail on spiritual warfare part 2, in more in depth. So yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank all my new viewers. You know, I appreciate the views, I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate my new subscribers. You know, I don't have a lot, but still, I appreciate the growth. So I just want to say thank you. It's well appreciated. Helps the algorithms and everything. So all viewers, you know, thanks again. Please continue to subscribe, like, and share my videos with others. And you know, and feel free also to leave comments. You know, I appreciate any comments, even if it's criticism. I'll learn from that. Suggestions, questions, anything like that. So please feel free to even just a shout out in the comments, you know. Also, please check my playlists for other related topics to apologetics, spiritual warfare, and eschatology. My playlists cover a lot of that. And once again, continuing with the spiritual warfare, you know, remember to pray on the armor in Ephesians chapter 6. And so what I'm going to go over is there's some other armor also in the scriptures besides Ephesians chapter 6, but I'm going to list the different of the other armors and quote where they're at in the scriptures, just to give people an idea to browse and find, you know, there is other spiritual warfare armory. All right, so really, like within the whole armory that's found, that I was able to find in the scriptures, you know, with a lot of help from my Strong's Concordance, there's 23 pieces of armor that I found. 5 are offensive, 13 of them are defensive, and 5 are like royal garments, like worn garments. Okay, so first I'm going to list, or I'll speak of the offensive weapons. Now, the offensive armor is the sword of the Spirit, which is Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 18. The spear of Jah, or God, that's in Habakkuk 3:11, and also Joshua 8:18 and 8 verse 26, chapter 8. And in Habakkuk, that would be chapter 3, verse 11. Then you have the rod of strength, which is mentioned in Psalm 110, verse 2. You have the battle axe of God, or the battle axe of Jah, which is in Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 20. And fifthly, you have the war hammer of God, the war hammer of Jah, which is Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 29. And then now, as a defensive weapons that are more like protective armor, you have the armor of light, which is found in Romans chapter 13, verse 12. You have the helmet of salvation, which is in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 through 18. You have the feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. That's Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 18. The shield of faith, which is Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 18. The shield of salvation, that's found in Psalms 18, verse 35. The large shield of favor, found in Psalm 5, verse 12. The large shield and buckler of truth, found in Psalm 91 verse 4. The breastplate of righteousness, which is Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 18. The breastplate of faith and love, that's found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 8. The breastplate of judgment, that's found in Exodus 28 verses 15 and 30. The girdle of truth, that's in Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 18. The girdle of faith for reins, Isaiah chapter 11 verse 5. The girdle of righteousness for loins, Isaiah chapter 11 verse 5. And then there's 5 royal garment armor pieces. And those are the crown of righteousness, found in 2 Timothy verse 4 chapter 4 verse 8. That's 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 8. And that would be the crown of righteousness. Then you have the crown of glory, Isaiah 28 verse 5 and Isaiah 62 verse 3. The garment of righteousness, 2 Timothy chapter 4. Oh wait, that's the one I just read, I'm sorry. The garment of vengeance, Isaiah 59 verse 17. The cloak of zeal, Isaiah 59 verse 17. The robe of righteousness, Isaiah 61 verse 10. Now those are just other examples of armory that's found in the scriptures. Now remember, it's always good to pray on the armor, you know. You have to pray it on, because prayer is the most important thing with spiritual warfare. And also remember, with spiritual, well, like in the other topics, I talk about the discernments. So apologetics brings biblical discernment. Eschatology brings prophetic discernment. And spiritual warfare is a two-edged sword, because it brings spiritual discernment and also worldly discernment. Because remember, the world's run by Satan, so we have to be aware of the worldly tactics that Satan uses. So that brings on, we have to, know the world in a sense. Know your enemies in a sense. But then it also brings spiritual discernment, because in learning the tactics of the world, you learn about spirituality overall in a sense. Occultism, all of the deceptions that are rained down on us. And so by acknowledging and learning about what those things are and comparing it to the Bible and the Holy Spirit, you get spiritual discernment. And also for our own personal attacks, because we do get, we're all sinners, so we all fall short of the glory of God. So, we all sin, so we have to deal with that, No one's perfect. That's why Jah was on a cross for us, It's like Jesus Christ, went on the cross to, salvation, to save us from sin. So if we don't sin, we don't need Christ. But it doesn't mean, hey, sin more, because then the more you need Christ. It just means, think of it this way: every time you sin, you just nailed him up on the cross yourself. So it's to not sin, but we can't go around and act like we've never sinned or we don't, because we all have evil thoughts. We all have, we just, that's what the world gives us too. So we have to have that discernment. So praying on the armor is the best way. Now, another thing is now knowing our enemies. You know, the enemies are obviously Lucifer, Satan, Babylon, you know, all the wickedness, all the iniquities, you know, all the different tactics that the evil spirits of the dark side use against us. So we have to know those things. So there's things like spiritual attack, you have familiar spirits, you have generational curses, you have demon possession, demon oppression, you know, sin in itself. You know, you have principalities and powers in high and low places. You have like spiritual strongmen and strongholds. Spiritual bondage, which requires deliverance. That requires deliverance, you know, spiritual discernment, intercessory prayers, you know, things like that. And that also helps, you know, to cast out demons, you know, and demonic possession and things like that bring on multiple personalities, disassociation, you know, things like that. So we have to be aware of those kind of personal things and these worldly things. Now, another thing, the enemy has a variety of, you know, Babylon has a variety of ways to get at us, you know, through global plans and dominance. You know, they work through all society areas of life, like through religion, through economics, through government, using the civil laws and things. Not meaning all laws are bad, but I'm saying they could create laws that go against God. Through the education system, especially with the Jesuits. Entertainment, that's especially with the Jesuits and the Zionists. You know, they use secret societies and global organizations. Okay, now my next step here, hold on, let me just overcheck my notes. Sorry, give me a second, be patient with me. Okay, yeah, now also still talking about the enemies. Now there's, you know, the enemies work through persons, global organizations, secret societies, you know, and how they work is through influences, agendas, occultic teachings and practices. And why they do it, why they attack us, you know, to deceive us from God, to get us away from Jah, you know, and to lead us astray into other paths that lead us off the Bible and Jah. So that's the reasons why, because Satan wants all the praise. You know, Lucifer, he wants to be as God. And we don't, you know, Jah gets all the glory, just as Christ, the Holy Spirit. And then there's a lot of examples of spiritual warfare in the Bible. I'm not going over them in detail, but there's plenty with, you know, when you read about Jesus Christ, he cast out demons. He cast out evil spirits, you know, and things like that. And I think some of his apostles and also did the same, or his disciples. So, I mean, you know, that right there shows you there is real evil. It's not psychological. There is real demons. And otherwise Christ wouldn't have cast them out, you know. So that's still real to this day. Okay, now one of the ways to battle against a lot of this stuff is, you know, like I said, you pray on the armor, but you know, you can also have prayers and blessings, you know, over your home, over land, over your possessions, over persons, you know, your family, your loved ones, children, you know, your babies, your you know, your family, and even pray over your enemies. Well, you can't pray over them unless they're in your presence, but you could pray for them still. All right, be patient with me. Let me just get to where I was gonna. Okay, went over that. Okay, now I'm gonna get into a little more detail on some of the organizations, the persons involved with occultism and things like that. Some of the dark side issues that, you know, are worldly, that have come into this world through practices and teachings. So if we're aware of these things, then it just helps our discernment, you know, helps us not to get caught up in the web. You have to think of Babylon as a giant web. Everything connects. Now, persons like Saint Ignatius Loyola, he was the one who created the Jesuits, which is the Society of Jesus. These are people I would suggest you look up yourself. I'm not going to go into big detail about a lot of them, but just a little information. People like Aleister Crowley, you know, he was a founder of, he was a big Freemasonry guy and also a Satanist. He believed in black magic. He wrote books. He did a lot of things. He had his own religion called Thelema, like a society or like a secret society, but it was kind of religious related, called Thelema, you know. But he's a big bad guy on Satan's side right there. He even considered himself the beast, and he's got a lot of creepy, weird stuff, like talks about sacrificing children and things like that, you know. So you have Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. You have Albert Pike. He was a big Freemasonry guy here in America in the late 1800s. And he also wrote a book, Morals and Dogma, which actually teaches, you know, when you go up the higher ups, the 33rd degree in Freemasonry, they teach, you know, they flip it on you. They teach that Lucifer is the Almighty and Jah is the bad guy. So they switch it up, you know. So that's right. They even state that in his book. It's a occultic Freemasonry book by Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. Let's see, then you have people like Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey. You have the White and the Black Pope. You have Antoine LaVey, who was, you know, the leader of the Church of Satan. You have Michael Aquino, who was the leader of the Temple of Set, who also came out of the Church of Satan. He broke off and created his own stuff. He was also a high military guy who dealt with psychological warfare and things like that, similar to like MK Ultra and things like that. Then out of all this wickedness, like Church of Satan and things like that, comes what I meant to mention in the first video, but I had forgot what it was called, but SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse. You know, that's like what they're talking about in the Epstein files, sacrificing children, abusing them. They believe they get power from Satan by doing the worst things, you know, to the most innocent, you know. Vampires, fire burn. Now, when it comes to some of the, you know, organization or some of the, you know, you have like Bohemian Grove or also the Bohemian Club. You have, these are some of the big organizations, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, Trilateral Commission, the Illuminati, which is the Bavarian Illuminati. You have the World Economic Forum, the WHO, the World Health Organization, Rosicrucians, the Club of Rome, Opus Dei, the Theosophical Society. I think that was from Madame Blavatsky. You have the New Age movement. You have like royal and banker families. You have United Nations. You know, a lot of these are all tied into the occultic things. And now you have some stuff too, like these are also demonic doorways. These are ways to let the evil spirits in, you know, by dealing with these certain practices. Ouija boards, Dungeons and Dragons, voodoo, obia, transcendental meditation, dealing with like tarot cards, fortune telling, spirit channeling, palm reading, astrology even, hypnotism, levitation, seances, necromancy, which is speaking to the dead, praying to the dead. You have sexual spirits like the succubi and the incubi, I think they're called. You have sex magic, that's also some Aleister Crowley taught about. You know, you have soul ties, fetishes, ESP, divination, astral projection, even some of the Hindu practices like yoga. You know, like a lot of churches, modern day churches, they practice, you know, they bring in yoga and they don't understand that's a Hindu teaching that ties into their gods. The deeper you get into it, the more you'll find that out. But on the outside, it just seems like good exercise. But even look up the word yoga, just look up the word itself, you'll find that it's tied into Hinduism and stuff. You have Kabbalah, which is a Zionist thing. You have black magic, white magic, which is where Wicca comes from, where they believe it's good witches, good magic, you know, like they, you know, put spells on their friends for good reasons and worship nature and stuff like that. And then black magic and sorcery, that's the opposite. Well, it's all magic is sorcery, but black magic is more like the evil side of magic, which all magic's evil and deceptive still. Okay, now another thing is like you have a lot of pagan gods. Some are from the Bible and stuff. Like, you know, you have the pharaohs, Horus, Legion, Aiwass. That was a god that Aleister Crowley spoke of. You have like Moloch, Molech, same one. Baphomet. You have Set, which is Egyptian. You have Baal, Pan, Leviathan. You know, even modern day ascended masters. Abaddon, Apollo, the spirit of Jezebel, Beelzebub, Pegasus, you know, devil, Satan, Lucifer. Also the great architect is what Freemasonry call them, as the creator god. They call him the great architect. But because he's supposed to be Lucifer, he's obviously the wicked. So then you have Ra, and then you have a lot of the you know, the practices of the mythical ancient cultures, like of Egypt, which would be chemetry and Egyptianology and stuff like that. Rome, you know, all of Rome's old pagan practices. Greek practices, Mesopotamia, Sumerian, Babylonian. You know, a lot of these are pagan Babylonian practices, which came out of the Tower of Babel. Then you have a lot of occultic religions that tie into occultism. Neo-paganism, humanism, Unitarian or Universalism, Zoroastrianism, Zionism, Islam, Confucianism, Taoism, Sikhism, Roman Catholicism, shamanism, Hinduism, scientism, evolutionism, Darwinism, atheism, Luciferianism, Satanism, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, witchcraft, Wicca, Gnosticism, spiritualism, Hare Krishna, Christian Science, Buddhism, the Baha'i faith, You know, all these are different religions that will misguide you off of the Bible. And really what occultic, most of the Babylonian practices do is just really take the focus off God and put it on yourself. That's when you know, everything's about you cleaning yourself out. You have the power. You have these powers, you know, and it all boils back down to you. So you being a better person, you. And then where's God when it's all about you? And you're not having God form you and your decisions. And so you're not using Jah or the Bible as your guidance. You know, you're using all this other stuff that leads and comes from occultic practices most of the time. And now some of the occultic symbols and objects and things like that that come from most of, you know, you have like hex signs, the use of crystals, you know, the yin-yang sign, the idea of dragons, obelisks, icons, magic wands and staffs, you know. You have a lot of books on occultism. Think about it. If you go to the Barnes & Noble or your local big bookstore, you know, look at the little Christian Bible area. You have like maybe one little aisle, but then right next to it, you're going to see occultic stuff. I mean, all these different philosophies of putting hex on your friends and witchcraft, all kinds of stuff. Just go to your local bookstore, check it out. That shows you how open it is in our society. Okay, you have like Freemasonry symbols, the Ankh cross, the hexagrams, pentagrams, swastika, even the peace sign was an occultic sign, the upside down cross. You know, you have different hand signs, like in Freemasonry, a lot of the, let's see, the, what do you call them? A lot of the entertainers, they do the eye thing like that and cover one eye and you know, put the hand in their jacket like that. Those are all Freemasonry signs that they use. You know, things, they're called like the devil's horns, you know, the 666, all this different stuff. Devil's horns, you have the 666, the Bowman, the V sign, things like that. And then remember, they have, Babylon has worldly agendas like globalism, the New World Order, Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, Noahide laws, climate change. You know, they have all this political bullcrap going on, you know. So I would just say be very discerned about everything. Like even the regular local media and news, you know. It's really hard to follow because it's just they change the game all the time. So. Okay, I'm just kind of overlooking a few things. Let's see if I missed anything. You know, in Babylon, the Tower of Babel, that's kind of where it started, you know. All the pagan practices. That's why Jah had to come and bring down the Tower of Babel and change it, you know, because change the languages and everyone kind of more into their own because everyone was just babbling, you know. And sometimes people talk, you know, it's just a lot of talk and it's kind of like, hey, you're babbling, so it's like coming from Babylon because you have to be able to say stuff and take it somewhere, you know, prove it and show it somewhere. Don't just, a lot of things people just grab out of the air, it seems like, because they heard it on the news or they watched it on a YouTube clip or they on social media and they just believe it right off without checking it. That's why I always say, even anything I say, please check it, research it yourself. You know, don't just listen to me. What if I'm lying to you or something? You know, I'm just saying. Or what if I'm making a mistake myself and I don't know it? And you can come up on here and correct me. You know, that's how open I am. But most of what I'm talking about is researched historical facts. Okay, I did mention like some of the occultists, like Albert Pike, from Freemasonry, Aleister Crowley, and his Thelema, Michael Aquino in the Temple of Set. Okay, now Madame H.P. Blavatsky, she had books also like Secret Doctrine, and one was called Isis Unveiled, and she was the one who was big on I think theosophy. And then Alice Bailey, she had a thing called Lucis Trust, which originally was called Lucifer's Trust. But, it was kind of like bringing a lot of attention, so she changed it to Lucis Trust, which is a nonprofit service organization that she founded in the U.S. in 1922. But see, that's how the occultists work. They create big organizations that can lead into agendas, and then they foster what they believe, and they foster that occult style beliefs. That's why you see so much change in the media, and in the education and everything, the different areas I was mentioning earlier: education, government, entertainment, everything is kind of linked up. All right, I think I pretty much covered most of what I wanted to speak about. That was occultism things in just a little bit more detail about, the worldly aspects of it, how they use different things to get into different societies and agendas, and a lot of secret societies, and half of those, there's probably triple of what I just mentioned. So, but if you like, research some of those names and the organizations, and you'll see they kind of lead into some things of, trying to control our minds, especially with politics. Like me, I've been on this earth 58 years. I'm about to be 59 in May. And I've just seen a rapid change within the last, probably since I was in my 20s. I just see how everything kind of gets corrupted. And now that I've been studying eschatology and in a historical sense, and learning about like what the Jesuits do and have done and they're still doing, things like that, it just kind of puts together a bit broader picture of what's going on in this world. So, all right, well, let's see, I'm trying to think, was there something else I wanted to say? No, I just would like to say a prayer and end it with that. So, I'd like to ask the Almighty Jah, Father, Creator, Jesus Christ, His Holy Son, and the Holy Spirit to guide and protect all of us, guide and protect all you viewers out there. My wife, she's still in recovery since her brain surgery, but she's doing well, doing better. So I appreciate that. Give thanks, God, for that. And thank you, Jah, for all the new viewers and subscribers. And like I said earlier, please, all ones and ones, I hope these videos touch you or at least teach you something, spiritually or biblically. And when I say spiritually, I mean Holy Spirit. I don't deal with spiritualism. It's about the Holy Spirit. So we give thanks and bless all viewers, and thanks again, all ones and ones, for your time. God bless.